Good morning. My name is Greg Davis, and I would like to welcome you to the CBS ArcSafe webinar dealing with the maintenance and inspections of the RS units along with our RSOs and RSAs. The first thing I'd like to talk about is our RS1, which has been our tank for basically the bulletproof thing that's been racking breakers for well over 13 years out in the industry. And we understand that many of our original units from back in 2008, 2009 are still out there racking a lot of circuit breakers. So for those, let me just talk real quick about what we would like to do with inspecting these units and checking them out. Okay. When you're looking your unit over, you need to be able to inspect it for oxidization in the wires, fraying around the connections where you've got your connections going in and out. If you're using the pendant, whether the pendant connection down here is breaking loose, you see any exposed wires through the insulation on there. These are things that you need to look at and let us know whether or not you need to get a replacement, whether you need to get something fixed. We also offer refurbishment on these units, just to let you know, where we can bring it up to the current standards in terms of the CCM module and what's inside the box also. And if you were going to do something like decide that you want to go back and add a radio remote to a unit that you've got at this time, we can work to do that for you also. So I want you to keep these things in mind as you evaluate your arc flash safety needs, and we go through that. So one of the big things we're going to talk about today is inspecting the batteries. Most of the RS units that we use, our RSOs and RSAs, use a AGM 12 volt, 8 amp hour battery. Now this battery size comes in 3 different ampacities. You can get like a 7.2 amp hour, an 8 amp hour, and a 9 amp hour. We use the 8 amp hour in all of our RSOs and our RS units for the RS1, RS2, RSO4, and RS4. We use a different amp battery in the RS3 that you see over here. Now, internationally, if you don't have an 8 amp hour battery available, you can use 9 amp hour. Okay, so just understand that. But we do not recommend that you use the 7 amp hour. The ampacity of the battery is what gives you the strength to do the number of operations. So with an RS1, to change the batteries and inspect them, what you'd normally do is you'd have your fluke meter or whatever your voltmeter that you're going to use. You would open this thing up, and we recommend checking it once every year. The battery manufacturer recommends replacing them every 2 to 3 years. So we've seen customers have them last for longer than that, and we've seen customers who have run these things down and killed them in a rapid fashion. So as you can see right here, they're very accessible. One short blade screwdriver and one long Phillips head screwdriver are all that we need. We disconnect the battery at all 4 of the terminals. Now there is a capacitor in the system, so when we reconnect these things back up, you're going to see a small spark. But all I do is 2 screws here. Just like that. Lift the battery strap out. One battery out. batteries out. Now we just put them back in. I'll connect them back up. And that's all it takes to replace the batteries on an RS1, RS2, or RS4 unit. Now, things to note, the CCM module would tell you on the RS1 and the RS2, it would give you a minus BA indication, which would tell you you have one racking operation left and you need to recharge the batteries, okay? When you inspect these batteries, if they're not holding 12 volts on each battery minimum, then you need to replace them. The charger that's down here is a smart 3-step charger. It's got a high charge, standard charge, and trickle charge, so it will keep from overcharging the batteries. If you see any deformation on the batteries, they need to be replaced. So that's another sign that they've had a structural failure or an internal failure of the battery, and that would be something that you would need to replace at that time. Okay? You do have to have the batteries in the unit to be able to operate it. Now, as noted before, if you've got questions, call us at 1-877-472-3389 or email us at info@cbsarcsafe.com if you've got any questions about any of this. So these are the things, and you know, you're just going to check these once a year. And a 12-volt battery it's a class of batteries, just to explain this. So a fully charged battery could be up at 13.6 volts, while an older battery may be down around the 12-volt range after a year or so, okay? Whenever the unit is not in use, it's fine to leave it plugged in and charge it so that you're always working to keep the batteries up. Now, I understand, and when I go out and I train people, I'll tell people this, you know, we will give people manuals. We will share them electrically, okay? And I understand, just like when we're guys and we build a model airplane, that we look at the picture, we may not read the manual, okay? Work to remember to check your batteries annually. And if they're holding 12 volts, they're usually doing good. If they're not, then you're gonna work to replace them. And with, I'll tell you a humorous story from our first year of operation. This was one of the reasons we tell people, please give us a call. We sold a unit back in October of 2008. It was used at a power plant for the fall outage. It was parked off on the side. When it was parked off on the side, the last person that turned the power off pushed down the emergency stop button. And this is why I talk about people not reading the manual for troubleshooting or anything else. Okay? They turn it back on for the spring outage. The display doesn't come alive even though the power light's on the side. They check all the buttons without checking the emergency stop button. They ship it back to us, red UPS, without a phone call. We look up the serial number, we see where it's come from, we call them up and we say, what did you send it back for? They said it's broke, it don't work. Our shop foreman, Ernie, at the time, turns it on, checks the machine, releases the emergency stop button, it works. They get it back 2 days later on another express UPS charge, and they had 4 days loss of the unit, and we were the ones that called them. I mean, sometimes the stuff is so simple, just give us a call. We'll help you try to get this stuff back online, because our interest is in keeping you and your people safe, along with keeping your equipment up and running, okay? And like I say, we have a lot of people, and I will tell you quite honestly that maybe 1 to 3% of our customers will read the troubleshooting guide in the manual versus calling us. And we do our best to train everybody to use the equipment. We'll work to go through this stuff when we train you. If you forget something, do not be afraid to call us. We're here to help you for our taking care of you and taking care of your people. Now, the next thing we're going to look at for batteries is one of our RSK kits. Depending upon whether it's a push button or one of the CS switches, you can have between 8 and 16 batteries in the kit. To expose those, this is all you have to do. And it talks about how to, it says, please read on this little piece of paper here before you pull this thing out so you don't break any wires. But you can see that there's 16 batteries in here. Can you see that, Brian? Okay. And when you pull these out, we're actually recommending that you use the Energizer. I want to make sure I read the right thing here. Ultimate Lithium AA batteries. And the reason we recommend these batteries, whether you're using these in our radio remotes, whether you're using them in the chicken switch kits, the RSKs, is because unlike a lead acid battery, they don't leak. And so the likelihood that you're going to have any corrosion inside is going to be minimized because of that. Okay? So we recommend that you replace these batteries annually. Okay, so when you get them, if you make a note on your calendar that you need to replace these things, then that's what we would hope you do. And it's just an annual maintenance thing. They're readily available. Let me get this thing back in here. There we go. Just a little bit of patience. Screw this back on. And again, these need to be replaced annually. Now, one thing with the RS units, if you've got the radio remote on here, this has 4 AA batteries in the back, and you need to be replacing these annually also. Okay. Simple Phillips head screwdriver, pops it off. Okay, and you can see those right there. And it just takes a couple seconds, but again, replace these annually. The next thing we're going to cover right now are the RSOs. Whether you've got an older RSO1 or RSO 3D or a newer RSA1 or other RSO1, they still use the same batteries like we were talking. The AGM 8 amp hour 12 volt DC batteries. These are sealed lead acid batteries. The unit comes like this, and what we do is we would pull this off, and you can see the batteries down inside of here. There's a battery on the front on this version, or correction, a battery strap screw on the front and one more on the back. So once a year you're going to expose this, you're going to unplug the unit, you're going to check the batteries to make sure each one's holding 12 volts. If you want to check to see whether or not the battery charger is working, plug it in. It's got also a smart charger in it, which has got a trickle charge capability. So it works not to overcharge the batteries. And again, if you notice any deformation in the batteries, replace them. And so these are just small screws to hold this thing in. We do have a guide for the RSOs on how to change the batteries. So if you need this and we need to send it to you, please give us a call. We'll be glad to email this to you if you've got any questions on that. The newer RSOs use the same batteries. And while I made that one easy to see as far as we already had the screws out, you just need a small screwdriver to remove these two screws. And then there's actually a couple screws on the bottom on this version. I'll just show you. Down here, and you'll remove those to allow you to remove the assembly that's inside, and then the instructions give you the rest of the directions to be able to remove the batteries or inspect the batteries as you need to. Okay? So this takes the smaller screwdriver like this point versus a regular standard Phillips head 1 or Phillips head 2. So you just need to have that available besides. With the RS3 DSR line, or like whether it's an RL, a DSR1, or anything else, this uses a 3.2 amp hour, 12 volt DC battery. These do need to go back to the factory for replacing the batteries. The batteries are supposed to be good for 2 years, and when it goes back to the factory, it'll be probably about a 2 to 3 day turnaround for them, because what they're going to do is they're going to replace the battery, they're going to inspect the unit and run it through its paces before they ship it back to you. If they find any problems with it, they'll give you a call to let you know that. But generally these things are made to be rugged and reliable, and there's really not that many things that people can have go wrong with them. So the real thing is just to make sure that the batteries get replaced about every 2 years and that you get it inspected like that. Okay. Now, we've brought out an RSO, and one of the things we'll note is this. This doesn't do anything by itself. It has to have, or correction, RSA. This has to have an RSO to be able to power and do everything. And all you're looking for is that nothing is bent before you use this RSO. And what we normally recommend people do is that they will exercise the RSO before they put it on the equipment and use it. If you have a fresh set of batteries in an RSO and you're going to operate this, you know, we actually had 2 different switchgear manufacturers, Ben, correct? I won't say their names, but they had us do testing, and we got over 1,000 cycles, correct, on an RSO for
one charge or
one full charge.
It depends on the application and how much.
So
on the force of the application, how much torque is required. But
yeah. We did a couple applications for 2 different switchgear manufacturers, and we have gotten, and it is in terms of how much power is required, but we actually did 1,000 cycles for that manufacturer with a brand new set of batteries. So there's a lot of strength in the batteries, but just like anything else, you do have to make sure you're charging them. So when they're not in use, please plug them in. Now, if you're scared about leaving them plugged in over a long time, make sure you plug them in for at least 1 day out of the week. Okay, because a battery that's not regularly charged will lose charge over time all by itself. Okay, it's not going to maintain that charge, and so as temperatures go up and temperatures go down, you know, you get a little bit of wear and tear on that battery. But just make sure you're charging at least 1 day out of the week, so that you're going to have this system ready when you need to go use it. Okay, do we have questions? Or?
Not yet, but we can open it up.
Okay, so again, if you've got questions, please call us at info@CBS ArcSafe, correction, call us at 1-877-472-3389, or email us at info@cbsarcsafe.com. We'll be glad to mail you the instructions for changing batteries in the RSOs, because that's just one of our recent PDF documents we've done within the last year. So we'll just wait here for a second for questions then. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions at this time. I would like to say thank you for everybody for tuning into our webinar. Again, if you're interested in upgrades or refurbishments, or if you need the instructions, please call us or email us and let us know. The number is 1-877-472-3389 or info@cbsarcsafe.com. Thank you.